Hey, how's it going, y'all? I want to talk about this. This is the New York Times. I find things in these videos I think are kind of funny. They're talking about Soleimani's, his operations in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq. Fighting off U.S. Al Qaeda, U.S. funded Al Qaeda in these areas to basically resist U.S. imperialism. Um, and so, but there's something that the media always does here where they try to decide a government's intentions or their emotions or I don't know what they think that they are, but they try to decide for a government rather than looking at like practical reasons and telling the people practical reasons of why possibly it could be this way. They would rather say that they already know something about the government and what its intentions are, which no media company does, okay, in the United States or anywhere really. Let's look.
In any of the videos we found. They stay under the radar and do most of their work through
So
proxies.
here he is in Syria.
But we still see Soleimani. Here he is near Aleppo in 2015.
He was a great fighter against U.S.-backed Al Qaeda. So here's the thing. Okay, here's what I want to say. Here's what they're about to say. They're about to say, okay, so they're going to say, like, yeah, he works in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq. And then they're going to say why he doesn't work in Yemen. And watch why they say why. Notice, here is Iran, here is Iraq, Syria. These are all three connected. And there's Iran over here. You can't see where I'm pointing, but, notice how all these three are connected.
There's another place on the map, Yemen, where Iran is active. But we don't see Soleimani here. Why? Because Iran doesn't want to be linked directly to the conflict.
Okay, so for them to know that, like, that Iran doesn't want to be, connected directly to the conflict. Like, it appears that Iran is already connected to a conflict, in the area. You think maybe, just maybe, it might be more that, Iraq is right next to Iran, Syria is right next to Iraq, Lebanon is right next to Syria. Then after that, then you get Israel, who is a U.S. ally. And then you have Saudi Arabia, who is a U.S. ally. And you have the UAE, and, who is a U.S. ally. Okay, and then you have Yemen down here. And Iran has a blockade, has an embargo on it by the U.S. So they don't want to say that might be why. They want to say, oh, Iran doesn't want to get caught, or if Iran got caught doing that, they don't want to do it. It's that going all the way across one of the U.S.'s biggest allies in the world, Saudi Arabia, going all the way across there when the U.S. is already spending like billions on an embargo to block Iran off, probably wouldn't be a very good idea, right? That wouldn't be very practical. Whereas here is Iraq, here is Syria, here is Lebanon. That's very easy to move across, But they don't want to do that. They want you to think that they already know, that Iran just doesn't want to get caught. Like, Iran's scared. They're scared of getting in Yemen. They would have to move all the way across Saudi Arabia. And even with, if they were ever to move, forces, military forces through there, it wouldn't make it. It wouldn't make it past Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is one of the U.S.'s most armed allies or funded allies, Also a humongous contributor to Salafism and the Al Qaeda that the U.S. is funding in Syria and et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, so I want to talk about that. Is that they don't ever want to say like practical things. They want to say like, oh, we know that Iran just doesn't want to get caught. Like, it's like, no, well, it would be more practical to think that it would be impossible to go across all of this U.S. embargo right here. You can't really see where I'm pointing. But I mean, look all the way from the orange, closest part of Iran, of Iraq, all the way down to the closest part of Yemen to Iran, right? Like the closest part of Iraq to Iran, all the way down to the closest part of Yemen to Iran. All of that is completely blocked off by the United States, all the way up to Israel here. That's all U.S. ally. Why would Iran ever go across that? It's not they just want to do it or don't want to do it or they don't want to get caught. It's that they can't. It's just not practical, and that wouldn't be how war works. And that's why the genocide in Yemen is so awful. What the U.S. is doing in Yemen, because there's no they're blocking off Iran, so Iran cannot help Yemen. Like Yemen and Saudi Arabia is regularly bombing Yemen, and intentionally creating a famine. The United States is also regularly drone striking Somalia just across the Horn here, and so They don't want to explain that. They don't want to explain how much the U.S. is actually doing in that one block, and why Iran and Yemen are separate from each other, and why Yemen is going to be the last place to be able to get help strictly because of what the U.S. has done there. Let's get back into this though. Let's get back into, what why Iran doesn't want to get into Yemen, or why particularly Soleimani. That's one thing that they say, is that Soleimani obviously is not going to come all the way across U.S. forces. He obviously wasn't safe in Iraq, even with the United States just still feeling like they should continue doing whatever they want to Iraq. And that's how Soleimani died. But let's go ahead and look at what the New York Times knows about Iran and the Middle East. What they just already know about Iran. Let's go look.
We do see other clues. These are Iranian weapons being used by a group called the Houthis. They're fighting against forces backed by Iran's great rival, Saudi Arabia. And Soleimani's lack of public profile here tells us one final thing about the Quds Force. Controlling whether they come out of or remain in the shadows is all part of their game.
Oh, okay. Who is this? That is all their names. That's all part of their game they're playing. What they're not going to explain is in the shadows is that these forces are literally that the Houthis are fighting here are committing that they say is their biggest rival, Saudi Arabia. Not that Saudi Arabia is regularly using United States weapons to bomb, including white phosphorus, to bomb Yemen and to murder people there regularly. Not that a United States drone was shot into a school bus full of children in Yemen by Saudi Arabia. No, it's just that they're rivals because, that's how people in the Middle East do. But but Iran, why you don't see one of their main leaders coming all the way across this whole U.S. block of sheer government brutal enforcement that they, why you wouldn't see somebody like Soleimani come across that when, or even across their sanctions that the U.S. has placed there, that the U.S. literally intercepts in the waters when they're going to like Venezuela and places like that, and take stuff off their ships like pirates. But no, New York Times knows that Iran is just playing games.
Saudi Arabia. And Soleimani's lack of public profile here tells us one final thing about the Quds Force.
One final thing. Like, it's so arrogant. Like, this is what makes me angry about Yankee media is like, they talk about countries like us here, people in New York, like we in Brooklyn or somewhere, or Manhattan. We know what Iran is doing. We are already on the inside. Like, this is a government that has kept your United States government out of its country, despite all that your government has done to Muslim countries. Like, has completely kept your government out. And you're already going to know that it's just because they're playing games. It's just a matter of time for the U.S. shows them, that the game is over.
Controlling whether they come out of or remain in the shadows is all part of their game.
Oh, I just hate that. Like, I hate Western media so much. Okay. Well, I'm going to head out, y'all. Thank y'all. Y'all have a great day.